Oh, what's good, people? Oi, It's Tuesday night. Is it Wednesday night? I lose track of the days out here, bruv. It is Wednesday night. I should know that, really. Come on. I just got so excited because I'm here on the Bywire with the people, them. You know what it is. We bring you the news you can trust. Yeah, that's right. I'm Dan Lewis. And tonight, boy, we've got a jam-packed show as per usual, bringing you news from across our independent media partners, looking at what's been going on over this week, over today, and also talking about some of the subjects that are coming up in society and in around the world that we live. Now, let's get straight into the thing, because there is something the last 24 hours that has definitely been all over the media. Everyone's talking about it. Families affected by it. It is what is going on in the schools at the moment with A levels. Now we're going to head straight over to the Canary, where they are talking about A level results are higher this year than previously. But let's stop relying on the high stakes tests. Now, this one for me, I never did well in school. In school tests, I didn't like tests. I slept through my history exam in the GCSEs, and I don't even know what my grades were, right? So, 10, 15 years on from when I did my GCSEs, and I did BTEC, I didn't do A levels, but GCSEs, I don't remember what my grades were. And so much pressure is put on young people still to this day on basically these exams that, in my opinion, don't have a massive effect on the rest of your lives, but they do have an impact on what happens for the next 5 years in your lives. Because there are many jobs out there that you can go into, and you can get you need to have a university degree, you need to have qualifications, and I am not disregarding that. And all the people who get those qualifications, work hard at them, or try to get those qualifications, I have got an entire universe of respect for you, because you put that work in, fam. But for myself personally, I wanted to go into a career where you didn't need the exams, you didn't need those tests, and that's the problem. Every child in school is forced to go and do these tests. It doesn't matter what they might want to go on to, and also you're told that you're not going to be able to do this stuff again later on in life. Let's not forget that there was a political party that was offering education from cradle to grave. That could have been an opportunity for people, but in the capitalist world that we live right now, this is the case. And I think it is a really, really scary situation that a lot of children find themselves in, or young people find themselves in. And what the Canary done here is they've had a look at the grades itself, but also the journey that the young people and teachers have had to go through. Got to give a shout out to all the teachers out there. Big up you lot, man. Some of I ain't got time for you, the way you treat them young ones, but the majority of teachers, you are fantastic. You are amazing, because you are nurturing the minds of our future leaders, our future plumbers, our future telephone assistants, our future everything. The future of the world is, right there, and you're nurturing them. Big up you lot there. But when we look at the grades that come out now, first of all, there was nearly 45% of pupils had been awarded A's and A stars, which is an increase on the number of students from 2020 and 2019. And this is fantastic. This is brilliant to see. However, for them to get to that stage and be able to go through that, there was so much confusion. The education secretary didn't really make their mind up until they made an announcement in January. Then later on in the month, there was a letter that went out saying that there might be some mini exams. Like, it wasn't really clear. And then it wasn't until just before Easter when they changed their mind again last year. So it was a big mess. And then they made the announcement about who was going to mark these tests. And I personally, from what I understand in the whole situation, it is better that the teachers do, because the teachers still will understand the students. They will understand their basically the struggles they've been through to get the grade or to do the work that they've been able to give. And I think that's fantastic. Obviously, there was backlash over that letter in that Williamson sent out, the education minister, for mini exams to assess students. And he then sent out a detailed letter with guidance on the teacher assessment, saying that there would be like an optional assessment for questions that teachers can use. But Teachers could also base the grades on a range of evidence. Like I say, I just think that was so much better. Now, in the Canary, they quoted one of the students who spoke about the impact that the A levels have had during the pandemic as well, who said, I've had friends who are suffering more panic attacks this year than any other year. And I'm one of those people too. What is the world come to when school is causing young people to suffer with panic attacks? Young people should never have to worry about panic attacks. School should be a safe place. School should be the one place children can go to other than their home where they feel safe, they feel protected, and they feel like they're not going to have to deal with stress or anything like that. That is crazy. It is unbelievable. Now, obviously, the Canary, they always go into a lot of detail. Big up Jasmine Norden, a regular on this show when it comes to their articles coming in here. They've also covered, what are the inequality, what was the inequality levels like in terms of the results, and also going forward, what's next? What are we going to see? Quoting some people who have been looking into this, some of the experts as well, and looking what the actual statistics were in those. Now, sticking with education, we're going to move over to Byline, talking of inequality as well, where they were talking about the A-level attainment gap between state and privately educated children. It almost doubles during a pandemic. This is a very, very important article that, in my opinion, definitely needs to be thought about and looked at. Now, most of you will know I've mentioned it before on the show, and I've previously been vocal about my support for the abolishment of private schools, and leveling up the education gap, basically, so that, well, in not just bringing them closer, bringing them together, so that every child has access to the same education. Now, let's have a think about what's going on here. There are children in the UK who are being educated, and the state is paying for it, but there are children whose parents have got the luxury or the opportunity to be able to pay for a higher level of education. Now, they're paying loads of money into these schools, while state schools are actually having their funds cut from them. Now, this is really interesting because when you look at what's happening with the private schools, they're actually getting funding from the government because they are registered as charities. So they get extra funding coming in. They get tax reliefs on the money that they receive as well. And so that means that they not only have got the privilege of a private education, but also they have the privilege of access to money that would normally go into the system to help other less privileged children getting access to education. Now, when we look at the A-level results, which Byline here, Sean Norris has done the article. Big up, Sean. We got love for you out here. The number of privately educated teenagers achieving the top grades in their A levels this year is almost double than that of children educated in comprehensive, and double that of students in sixth form colleges. And the gap between independent and state school is a real cause for concern, is what's been said here from the Sutton Trust, who is a mobility charity. They're fantastic. The work they do, really good investigative, like they do really brilliant reports looking at basically the levels of inequality in the UK. And I know they've done a lot around young people. They've shared a lot of data on Twitter as well, which has been referenced here in the article. Now, just to give you some of those figures, nearly half, so 42% of academy educated children achieve grade A or above, and 35% of students at sixth form colleges got A or A star. Now, that's the biggest gap between state and private, but students across the board that received a higher grade in 2019, when 44% of privately educated pupils got a grade A or above, compared with the 20% of comprehensive schools students. Now, you see the numbers here, how they don't add up. I'm not a numbers man, but these clearly make sense. This gap, it does seem to increase and increase. And what impact is that having? Now, let's look at the difference that people have. In the private schools, the students have access to study rooms. They have access to smaller classrooms. They have access to a larger number of teachers and a higher level of quality in terms of the equipment, the resources that are available to them. Whereas children from a less privileged background would not have access to that. They might be in a house that they're sharing with 2 or 3 other people, and there's not as much space because there's not as many bedrooms as there are people, and they maybe don't have access to the technology. The only technology they have access to is in the school, and not at home as well. So you see the differences that come about in this. I think that the Sutton Trust have definitely done a credit to themselves in putting this information out there. Now it's time that the government starts to have a look at this. And I think also schools and school leaders and head teachers, those kind of people, they need to start having to think about what impact this has and what they can do to start turning this around. Before we finish up on the A levels and stuff, listen, yeah, if there's any young people out there watching the show, which obviously all of you lot are young, in it, don't know. But big up, man, big up. You worked hard, you done your best, right? And even if you didn't, life goes on. You're gonna keep doing what you're doing, keep fighting, keep going for what you want to go for. And listen, if you want to change the world, you go change the world, right? If you got your grades, go take them grades and run with them. Make them everything in this world. Because whatever you do in this world, it's up to you to make what you want to happen. Did that make sense? Yeah, it did, definitely. Now, back over to the Canary now. We're looking at Twitter. Now, remember earlier in the year, we had that big football game, the one with England and Italy. Yes, Twitter has issued an update on responses to Euro 2020 final racist abuse. So we obviously covered this in quite a lot of detail, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to plug that tomorrow we've got a good friend of mine, Tom Williams, who's going to be coming on the show and giving us our weekly football update as the Premier League starts. Going to be looking into sports and football, bit of coverage, looking at what's going on, and having a bit of chat about how the media react to different things that's going on within the sporting world, most of all football this week and going forward. Now, onto the subjects here from the Canary. Twitter in total have removed 1,900 racist or abusive tweets after the Euro 2020 final. And the majority of them came from accounts in the UK. They identified 1,622 tweets during the final, and then afterwards, I think it was 1,961 in the days after the final there. Now, what they were saying, what Twitter have tried to say here is that racism is a societal issue. It affects everyone. It's everywhere, which is absolutely fine. But what I have to give them credit for is that they've said they need to make sure that their platform is a safer space for the people who use it. And you've got to credit them for that. I feel that in some cases, they've slacked a little. And I hope that this is the turning point here where they're going to actually make a difference. Now, they have released some information on the what went on exactly and what people saw online. So, for example, they said that only 2% of the tweets removed following the final generated more than 1,000 impressions or views before being taken down. No, these kind of information, this is useful. We know who's seen what and all that kind of stuff. But they said that they're looking at new ways in which they can reduce the visibility of these tweets. I think that is actually something that they've already done. You'll notice when you look at someone's tweet, it says that some of the replies to this tweet have been hidden. It's because an account has been flagged as someone who's regularly abusive or regularly swears or uses, unacceptable language, racist language. The other side is in regards to the campaign for ID verification to be introduced. Now, some people say the campaign is flawed. I massively disagree with it. Look, right, so I've walked into clubs or pubs where you need ID to access them, and I've still received racist abuse. So how is that going to stop someone on Twitter from, being racist? I don't see it. I just don't see it. And Twitter have also said that 99% of the account owners it suspended during the tournament for abuse rule breaches were identifiable and not posting anonymously. There's a full statement from Twitter on the Canary article, so make sure you check that one out. Now, over to our big story today. We covered this about a week or two ago. It's from Open Democracy, talking about 40 lords reported to authorities over financial interests. Now, like I sometimes feel like the Lords, big up Martin Williams, by the way, who's done this article in the Open Democracy. We love the Open Democracy squad, Dano the Dano. But I feel like the Lords, right? So in case you don't know, in case you did miss the show, the Lords are this group of unelected people that sit theoretically above the MPs, the House of Commons. And anytime a bill, so some kind of law, goes through the House of Commons, it also goes up to the House of Lords. They look over it, I think 2 or 3 times. They make amendments. It goes away, it comes back, and then it goes to the House of Commons where the MPs are to put the rubber stamp on it and say, that's done, that's law now. Now, these complaints, there was 42 in total of these, 42 of these lords, initially, that were looked into, because what they have to do is they have to register their interests. And by that, it means that they have to register what kind of stuff they're involved with. So whether they have a business that they're a director of, whether someone they're closely related to, like a spouse or, you know, a son or daughter or something, that might have an impact on the decisions they make in Parliament. Now, a lot of lords, a lot of them have extra jobs. They've got side jobs. They have the privilege that when they turn up to the Lords, the Houses of Parliament, all they have to do is sign in and say that they're there, and they get a payment just for turning up. So of course they can have other jobs and other things going on. And I'm not begrudging them of that. I just think it's a mad situation. These people are in charge of the laws, overseeing what goes on. They're the like highest held chamber of lawmaking in this country. And they've got time to run other jobs, like run other companies and be directors of things. I think all of your time should be consumed as a lord, personally. That's my opinion. And I know that there's a lot of people who would agree with me. Now, these lords that have not filled things in on the register, they have not been very clear about what the companies that they are directors of do, or like a lot of these companies as well. What the Open Democracy found out was that these companies that they were directors of didn't have websites. You couldn't trace them. They were just there. And then like at the end of the year, there's like £500,000 gone through or something. That's just a random example. I'm not trying to say that has gone through one of them. But either way, a formal complaint has been submitted to the parliamentary authorities. I think it was this morning or yesterday. Yep, yesterday. And it was done by the former Liberal Democrat MP Tom Brake, who is now director of Unlock Democracy. Now, in the letter, there was the list of the 40 of the 42 peers first identified by Open Democracy, and also reflecting the recent updates to their register of interests. Now, Brake has gone into detail on this. The full letter is available online. One of the interesting ones that I just wanted to highlight was Eric Pickles. Regular viewers will know man's not a fan of Eric Pickles. Man's a waste man. He's a climate change denier. He doesn't do anything really that benefits the people. He just does everything that benefits him and his pocket. But there was question over whether he would be investigated or not. And it is because basically he's trying to say that he's on this committee. He's the chair of a committee that oversees certain business operations within Parliament. And he said he hasn't got any income coming in, and he's had no income off the company that he's director of. Well, he's still being investigated. So good on the people that made that decision. I think that is absolutely fantastic that my man is being investigated in that way. Boom. Now, listen, guys. There's a few of the stories from our independent media partners. I hope you check them out. I hope you check out their websites. Don't forget, if you enjoy the show, if you like what you see, hit the like button, hit the share button. If you're not on YouTube already, hit subscribe over there. Help us get our numbers up and all that. But the work we try and do is we cover the independent media news. We deliver the news that you can trust, and we provide an opportunity or a platform for good news stories to get out there. And one of the stories that I saw this week, it's not they're not one of our partners, but they are independent media, was in Novara Media. Now, Sonali Bhattacharyya, from Momentum, the campaign group connected to the Labour Party. She's one of their national coordinating group members. Written an article in there about how we deal with racism, and I thought this was a fantastic article. I'll share the link in the chat in just a moment for you guys. I thought this was a fantastic article. I thought it was brilliant how she was talking about how we need to start looking at racial injustice in the UK right now and the plans that Momentum are taking forward. So I thought, what better way than get her on the show and get her to have a little chat and tell us more about it and have a little conversation with her. So I caught up with her earlier today. She's a busy woman, man. I managed to get some time out of her. Here's the interview, and let me know in the comments what you guys think. This is on the show today. Obviously, when I saw your article the other day and the first line, I read through it, I just thought to myself, Raj, you know what? This is so relatable to so many people. Like, thinking about one of the messages that I put across to a lot of people about capitalism is if you support capitalism, then you're basically supporting racism. And without destroying capitalism, you will not destroy racism. And when these anti-BLM people at the football games, they say that, oh, I can't support that BLM because it's anti-capitalist. I'm like, well, at least you're being honest, because it is anti-capitalist. BLM, Black Lives Matter, is to be anti-racist. It is the new anti-racist movement, alongside the obviously the chapter movement that's been set up in the US, here in the UK, and other places. But it is anti-capitalist to its core. To be anti-racist is to be anti-capitalist. And what you're doing is you're talking about exactly that, breaking down capitalism and creating spaces for people to be able to organize. But to be able to do that, we need to do it within our own ethnic or between our different ethnic groups, I should say. And like the way you explain it is so perfect, and what you're trying to talk about in the section where you talk about embracing anti-racism.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so like the starting point for me was that how much like of this brilliant work that's going on in terms of racial justice on the ground is being done by often like small campaign groups or organizations who are doing really heavy lifting. Basically, we've seen that this week. So for instance, just this morning, 9 people were forcibly deported to Jamaica. This is off the back of the Windrush scandal. The Windrush scandal hasn't ended; it's ongoing. This morning, you know, they wanted to deport 90 people. They managed to deport 9. You know, this is the Home Office like fighting like tooth and nail to try and, you know, force, you know, black men out of this country. 2 of these people were very elderly. One of them could barely walk. One of them apparently has dementia. Like this is what systemic racism looks like. But that work is being done by small organisations, working with heroic lawyers, working with the families of those people being deported. That work needs to be much more embedded within our socialist movement. That's basically my argument. It's too much in a silo, and that, you know, what you're talking about, the structural relationship between anti-capitalism, between anti-racism and anti-colonialism needs to be embraced. We've got all these people that have come into the movement because of Corbyn, either young people who are new to the movement or older people who've been re-engaged, who dropped off because of Blair, neoliberalism, etc. But, you know, we have a mass movement now, however demoralised we feel. And a way to sort of like make sure that movement becomes as powerful and coherent as possible is by, you know, ensuring that struggle against racism is really rooted in the work that we're doing. I don't think you can properly understand how we dismantle capitalism unless you understand the role that race and racism plays within all of this, within all of these systems. So that's the starting point, basically, and that's why that's why we've been working on this program at Momentum. We have we're the biggest socialist membership organisation in the country. We have we still have a really big membership who really want to be creating change on the ground, and we're trying to sort of like offer guidance and support and a framework that makes that change as coherent as possible and as effective as possible. And that includes
this program. It's the Momentum's racial justice program, right?
Yeah.
And like what I like about that is that you're not specifically trying to put a name on any type of group. We spoke about it before, because previously, whether you've been in a trade union, a workplace, just anywhere, it's like, oh, you're the BAME group, or you're the ethnic group, or now it's the POC. I just see POC, but people of color. And now I'm like, I don't even know who I am or what I am or anything, which takes me back a bit, because in the first line here of your article, you said you grew up identifying as politically black, and I was speaking to you earlier, and I said I grew up basically not exactly thinking I was white, but I didn't think I was any color, because my dad was light skinned. I was slightly darker, but then slightly lighter, depending on what time of year it was. My auntie was black, but she wasn't actually, like, everyone was my auntie. Basically, that I had anyone who wasn't white generally was just auntie. And then there was quite a few white aunties as well, and uncles. Mainly women made me who I am today. Do you know what I mean? So it's mainly women. One of my close.
Totally.
Yeah, there was no color, there was no divisions in the world around me until I was about I think about 5, and someone called me a Paki, and I remember that. It may have happened before then, but I remember that. And then it was like, oh, what makes me different? And it was another kid. It was a kid a bit older than me. And then a few years later, the local park, where it basically these kids started shouting no niggers, and it was like, me and my friend were like, what? And he was Oriental, you know what I mean? Like, so and that's when I started to realize these differences. And I had no political location for my ethnicity growing up, and I feel that there are many people, especially biracial or mixed race people, feel that way as well. And going back to what we said before about creating spaces, but also giving people a political identity within the struggle against racism, or the fight against racism, that's massively important. So how does that link into the work that you guys are doing, rather than actually fighting racism, which you are doing? You're taking on racist issues, but also giving people a political identity, a political space. How does that work in terms of what Momentum are doing as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I guess it's really about an understanding amongst our membership, and also trying to really claw back a socialist framework for anti-racism. I say in my article, we've really been mired in this sort of, this representational sort of politics, this politics around like interpersonal sort of slights and dynamics. And you can sort of see how discussion around race and racism has been eroded off the back of that. And that definitely includes within the Labour Party, and even includes within the wider left. And what that means has happened is that the structural nature of racism, the systemic nature of racism, has just been sort of been pushed aside. I'm really tired of having like conversations with people about like Rishi Sunak and like Priti Patel, and how the Tories are winning the race, this culture war by having the most diverse cabinet. It's like that is such a gift to the Tories, because it ignores the systemic nature, the systemic violent racist system that they uphold. It doesn't matter that Priti Patel is a brown woman. It doesn't matter, because the system that she presides over is racist and has been racist.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, through successive governments, the forced deportations that we saw today, the legislation around that was passed by a Labour government. That was passed by the Blair government. So, we're not talking about, we don't want to have, that whole black faces and brown faces in high spaces. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about systemic change. And that's what is really, that's why it's so clever, actually, to have reduced the anti-racist movement to something that's about, interpersonal relationships and about representational politics. Because as you say, it means that sort of a movement that can actually take on capitalism, that can take on climate collapse, is being muted, because we're not talking about how race impacts upon workers' rights, about work precarity, about our experiences within healthcare, about homelessness, about how the immigration system is pointlessly cruel and pointlessly expensive. Who does it serve? It only serves to divide us. It does, and we don't talk about how that impact of racism, essentially, for instance, let's take workers' rights. When migrant workers' rights are eroded, that isn't just bad for migrant workers. That is bad for all workers. When you start to create, sort of like a decline in workers' rights, where people are too scared to be able to stand up for themselves, they're too scared to be able to join a union, they're too scared to talk, to speak out about unsafe working conditions because of their immigration status. That makes work more unsafe for all of their colleagues as well. So and that's the intent. The intent is to to use that erosion of rights to then erode all of our rights. So I'm not saying we should only care because it affects us as well. But what I'm saying is this is all of us. Like, there is no, that division between migrant workers and workers is a false division. It's like, that's us. Like, so when we talk about, migrants coming and having to cross, the channel and being forced to cross the channel, and we've got these awful sort of like safaris now, like, from BBC going to sort of like taunt people. There's no distinction between those people and us. They're workers trying to, they're working class people, their families trying to come here in order to be safe, in order to. So I guess that's what I'm sort of getting at. The idea of political blackness is rooted in the shared struggle against empire, and I guess, like, I'd argue that we need to look at that. Not just say that that's the only sort of sense of unity, but we need to take that unity on board, and we need to look at workers from Latin America and say, well, that same unity applies to us. Maybe
what
not.
I find interesting with it is obviously I grew up in Greater London and Essex and those kind of areas, and I was never anything. Remember I was saying before, like, I never identified as anything. Even when I got older, I wasn't ever. Some people were like, "Oh, is he black?" And people would say to me, "Are you there?" Because of being biracial, people would constantly question who I am, what I am, and then they would, because they couldn't understand it or they couldn't put it in a box, especially the police. You should see the stop and search forms I've got: Hispanic, Turkish, Middle East, all of them. But people would say, "Oh, like," and I even use those jokes sometimes now. I'm like, I'm just like a bag of Skittles, man. Man's mixed up. You get me? Like, I got a flavor from every end of the earth. But I joke about it. But at the end of the day, that messes with your heads. Having somewhere to be able to actually feel welcome and a part of a culture, a community, a group of people, and that's so important, which is why I love exactly what Momentum are doing right now in terms of racial justice, bringing people together, creating spaces, as you've spoken about so eloquently. What is the next steps though, or what are the next steps though? What's your team looking at doing? How does this look practically for someone who might be in Newcastle and someone who might be in Devon? How do they get involved? What does getting involved look like? And where do you want to take things?
So it's quite an ambitious program, and I guess there's sort of like three main strands. The first strand is like national. So we had our launch event on migrant rights last month. And that was a national level. It's an open Zoom call to all of our members and to actually just supporters as well. We had fantastic organisations working in and around migrant rights who did breakout rooms. It was very workshop orientated. We want to continue that sort of model, but as much focused and rooted in action as possible. So not just political education through discussion and reading and talking, which is also important, but also through doing. So trying to connect our activist base to that work that I talked about that's going on the ground. And then and then there's sort of like a local level as well, where we want to we really want to be rooting our local momentum groups who are fundamental to our sort of organising structure. Local momentum groups are doing amazing work in their areas, building socialist power on the ground, getting involved in their, in renters' rights, in workplace organising and community organising. So we want to be able to offer like a relationship between the national structure and what happens with local groups. So the first thing that we'll be doing is working with Migrants Organise, one of the organisations who were on the launch call, to put together a local meeting pack around patients, not passports. So that is about the hostile environment within healthcare. And basically the idea is that local groups hopefully will be interested in running that session locally, and that being a way for them to connect with their local NHS organisation, whether that's Keep Our NHS Public or Save Our NHS, to link up with them and to be able to support that campaigning that's going on around the migrant surcharge, and to basically both be active in that, but also to be much more skilled up in learning and what the hostile environment is and what you can actually do to like really materially battle it on the ground. That's a key area. And then the third thing is we want this to also be a space where racialised Momentum members can get together and organise. And so as the programme is up and running, we're now inviting anyone who identifies as Black or Asian or from an ethnic minority in Momentum to join the working group with me and others on the NCG, and to think about the, sort of the finer detail of the programme, what they want to see coming out of it. But mainly we want to just be able to work together and talk together and start to build that power within the organisation through ideas and through activism. So building relationships, hopefully in real time.
I'm really excited to see where things go. Obviously, as things progress within Momentum, the work you guys are doing, you've always got a space on this show to come and let us know, give us an update and all of that kind of stuff. Sonali, listen, I know you've got a mad busy day and I appreciate you giving me the time out. So thank you so much. I hope you have a fantastic day and I look forward to the next event. I promise I'll be there. The last one I couldn't, so I was devastated to miss it.
If I can just give a little plug, that we're going to have an in real life event at TWT alongside the Fight Conference, and it's going to be exactly on what we're talking about cross community organising. So I'm putting that together right now. I don't have a date yet, but if you're coming to TWT this year, please look out for it and please join us.
TWT, the World Transform, we will definitely be there. I've got some exciting news for our viewers about that's coming up soon. So you're just laying the path towards it. Thank you so much, Sonali. Have a fantastic day and we'll see you soon. Well, yeah, big thanks, obviously, to Sonali for coming through and having a chat with us about the work that she's doing with the amazing people at Momentum and also all of the members there. What's really exciting about the Momentum itself as well is that they're reaching outside of the Labour Party membership. They're looking to a wider group of people now and how they can build power in communities. One of the big things we talk about on this show is about how people can take power into their own hands and go and start making their own change in the world. How can you go out there and do that? And Momentum are looking at exactly that. So listen, guys, big up you lot for tuning into the show. As always, my name's Dan Lewis. This is On the Bywire. Make sure you check out our website where our awesome team are keeping it updated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's bywire.news. Hit the like button. Hit the share button, hit us up on YouTube and hit subscribe. You know what it is. It's the news you know you can trust. Peace, people.